please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Hi there, good afternoon. This is Your Stocks. I'm Mangla Malu. With me is Sumaira Abdi. CNBC TV18 is the channel you're watching. Afternoon right now for our markets. The Nifty at that 10,200 mark, 30 points away from both the day's high as well as the low point of today's trading session. Mid-caps, they're doing well. 2 in the green for 1 in the red.
All right, so let's get started. Then we have a lot of queries to answer. Before that, here are top stories. Market of the day is low, supported by banking stocks. The HDFC Twins and IT stocks remain the main drag. Mild outperformance by the mid-cap index.
PSU banks, they gain on the news that the bond losses can now be spread over the next 4 quarters. SBI management tells CNBC TV18 that if the benchmark yield falls to 7.25, more provisioning won't be needed.
ICICI Bank's founding chairman N. Vagul defends MD and CEO Chanda Kochhar, and the bank says the debt of 3250 crore rupees was a consolidation of exposure to Videocon.
Binani Industries allowed to settle insolvency with lenders. Analysts question whether this will set a precedent for defaulters to settle outside the IBC framework.
And the National Highway Authority of India sets a 8,000-kilometre highway award target for FY19 compared to just 7,400 which they had done in FY18. Hopes to award 4,000 of this in the first 3 months itself. All right, those are our top stories. Let's get started and invite our 2 experts, Sharmila Joshi and Rajat Bose, join in to answer all the various queries that are being sent in. And our first query is through to us. Kanan P is called in from Chennai with a query. Mr. Kanan, good afternoon. I think we're speaking to you. We just spoke with you recently. You have a new query for us. Tell us.
Good afternoon, madam. Hello.
Yes, go on.
I have 200 shares of ICICI Bank.
200, is it?
Is no 100.
100, okay.
100 shares of ICICI Bank at the rate of 297.
Okay.
I hold the stock before 6 months before I purchased the stock.
Okay, so now you want to know, given the current news flow, is your investment safe? Sharmila, it's not just Mr. Kanan. In fact, a lot of people who have investments in ICICI Bank wonder that how they should decipher the current news flow. Now, a lot of people have come and said that, of course, there's no truth to this matter. But as an investor, is it better to be safe and stay on the sidelines and watch this unfold, or keep the faith?
Well, I think unfortunately the time to sort of stay on the sidelines has passed, because, when this whole news flow started, I think the stock used to trade at close to 300 sort of levels, and we've seen it correct over these last couple of weeks to its current level of about 260 odd, and I think from there on it's kind of done a little better today. So now I think it's best to really, as you're saying, some saying that there is not much to be made of this news, and another the other side saying that this is a very serious thing. So I think now is the time to really sit on the sidelines and wait for this, the sort of clarity to emerge out of all this. Because I think in terms of stock price, probably you're sort of not going to head much lower than this unless, some fresh news hits us, which I don't think is really likely. So that said, I think keep your eyes on the news flow, but at this price, I would recommend a hold.
All right, a hold from Sharmila, but keep your eyes out on the news flow. Rajat, technically, how does ICICI Bank look to you? It has declined, what, about 15% this year, still 10% off its 52-week low.
Technically, it looks weak. I would suggest that he should actually exit, because if he wants to remain invested in the banking space, I would suggest choose any one or all of the 3 banks, HDFC Bank, Kotak Bank and IndusInd Bank. And arguably, to my mind, HDFC Bank seems to be the safest. All 3 are good, so choose. Why be in a stock which is already having some kind of spot of bother? So I would rather prefer to be in something very safe, because the market condition is not very conducive. The liquidity driven rally that was there last year is not exactly there anymore. So it is better to be safe than sorry later.
All right, better to be safe than sorry. Rajat says that get out of ICICI Bank, get into the other banks that he just suggested. But let's move on to the next one. We have Himanshu writing to us from Kolkata. Himanshu Das, that is, holds 1,000 shares of HOEC at 135 rupees in the last 2 months. He's lost about 20,000 rupees. Medium-term investor wants to know whether to hold or sell. Sharmila, HOEC, oil exploration company, the crude prices they're moving, what would your recommendation be?
The numbers for HOEC were quite good in this last quarter, and there is news that they have an expansion plan, which also should mean that their results going ahead should also continue to be fairly strong. So I think if he could sort of extend his investment horizon and make it slightly, by medium term, I'm assuming 6 to 9 months. So I'm saying, make it 12 to 18 month kind of an horizon. I think at this price, he can stay invested.
All right, Rajat, what's your take?
My take is almost the same. I hold it with the stop below 95 on the closing price basis, because I believe the correction that was there in HOEC is more or less through. Now there could be a sideways consolidation, or it might start rising if the market supports any move of that kind.
Up next, we have Nityanand BN, who's now on the line with us from Karnataka. Hi, how can we help you?
Hello, ma'am. I have 50,000 rupees. I'm a student. I want to invest in Hatsun Agro for a long time period.
Okay, is this your first foray into investing in the stock market?
No, ma'am. I already investing since 2.5 years.
Wow. Okay. And so far, whatever you have bought, are they large cap stocks? I just want to understand why you have taken this decision to choose Hatsun Agro.
Because Hatsun Agro is a milk stock, milk products. So milk is a daily need. Means it has no boom and no down for the market. That's why. Okay.
All right. Well, Sharmila, it's good to see people who are actually, he started investing at what, 19 and a half, 20, he's 22 now. And it's heartening in itself. But for somebody like him, would Hatsun Agro be a good, it would be one of his first few investments, right? Or should he actually look right now for more portfolio type of stocks?
Well, that's really up to him, because, he has the fact to his advantage that he started young. And when you start young, you're obviously you can take greater risks. So that is definitely in his favor. But it's always a good idea to have a broad-based portfolio and start buying the large caps a little early in the game, so that you are invested in them for that much longer. That said, I think even Hatsun Agro coming to the stock, it seems fairly decent. But it's sort of, run a little ahead of itself, and it's given spectacular returns in the last 3 years. But I think at current valuations, to my mind, it looks a little expensive. And if you are, as you pointed out, a new investor and you're trying to get into a stock, if you are trying to get into a stock to sort of find value there, then I think Hatsun Agro is really, really expensive. So I wouldn't look at it until it came to a price of 600, honestly. So I leave it to you, but I would buy the stock, as I said, closer to a 600 rupee price.
All right, closer to 600 is where your buy price should be. Nityanand, Rajat, from the dairy space, which is the chart that you like the most? And I'm not going to ask you about quality, because that one's lost about 35% in the last 4 days.
First of all, to answer his question, I would say that typically from a technical point of view, Hatsun Agro can be bought between 700 and 750. At the moment it is below 700. I would suggest that wait a bit, pay a slightly higher price, but above 700, if it sustains, it would show technical strength. And probably the downturn that was there in Hatsun Agro after it posted the high, first 3 months the downtrend has been on, and probably it is coming to an end. Having said that, I would answer your question that which dairy stock I like. I personally hold Parag Milk in my portfolio, and from a valuation point of view, I suppose Parag has not stretched itself as much as Hatsun Agro did. And having gone through several fundamental reports, I think Parag's milk acquisition and other things are going pretty well, and probably it will do well. Having seen Manisha's story on Parag Milk, I'm quite convinced that Parag is going to do well. The disclosure has it that yours truly holds the stock in his investment portfolio.
All right, Nityanand, so that's the view coming in for you. Sharmila thinks 600 is a good place to buy, and Rajat thinks Parag milk is a better dairy stock to buy should you have your glass of milk every day. But let's move on. We have Ramesh Chaubey writing to us from Jharkhand, holds 60 shares of L&T, 1,500 rupees a piece for the last 3 years. Long-term investor, wants to know whether to hold or sell. Rajat, coming back to you again this time, 1,500 rupees is what he paid 3 years ago for L&T, still sitting in the red. What's your long-term view?
My long-term view is still positive. There was a time, Mangalam, about 25 years or so back, when we used to say, if L&T and Tata Motors are doing well, then Indian economy is doing well. L&T still holds that position. I suppose L&T would continue to be a long-term growth story. So considering that, I would give you some technical evidences that this stock has taken out its 200 DMA from the bottom last on 24th January 2017, and after that it has never breached that 200-day EMA on any correction, so its long-term uptrend is still intact. Okay, he purchased at a very high price, that's why he is sitting in the red. But over a period of time, when growth comes back, when market completes its correction, L&T would definitely put him in good state, and it is actually a very good long-term story to continue to hold on. So I would suggest him to hold on.
Okay. Sharmila, what's your take on L&T? I mean, orders are beginning to come through for a lot of these companies. There is hope to remain invested?
Well, you know, I think that if there was one stock within that space which you had to sort of bet on, then I think it would obviously be L&T, because, you know, if you were to see a revival in the entire capital goods space, and as you said, orders have been coming actually to most of the companies, execution has been an issue, margins have been an issue. So there have been sort of signals in L&T's numbers that some of these problems are now beginning to get sorted, and things are beginning to look better. But I think for a confirmation, you need more such good quarters to be reported. And as I said, you know, I think it is sort of best in class. So if you had to stay invested in this space, then, you know, the obvious company to stay invested in would be L&T. So for me, from a longer term perspective, the stock is a clear hold.
Just keep your eye out on the market. The Sensex as well as the Nifty just about breaking into the green as we speak. The mid-cap index, that one too is at the high point of the day. A lot of the mid-caps, they're doing well. So just pull up something like a Godfrey Phillips at the high point of the day. And we have Colgate too from the FMCG space, which has moved to the high point of the day. So we have Godfrey Phillips as well as Colgate. That one should come up for you. But let's move on. We have S. Mukherjee writing to us from Kolkata, holds 20 shares of Kansai Nerolac paints at 487 rupees for the last 3 months. Long-term investor wants to know whether to hold or sell. Sharmila, Kansai Nerolac from the paint space, he's sitting even Stevens as far as his investment is concerned.
Well, absolutely no complaints about Kansai Nerolac from a fundamental perspective. So I think if he has a long-term view, he can definitely stay invested. As I said, there is really no complaints about Kansai Nerolac that one can have.
Rajat, what about you? You concur, or do you have, I mean, is there something else that you prefer in this space?
No, personally, I consider that the painting industry, I mean, the players like Barger or Kansai Nerolac or Asian Paints, all of them have been really good wealth creators. So for a person with a long-term horizon, one can stay invested. And as it is, it has tasted its 200-day EMA twice, moving up. Now, as a technical analyst, it's my duty to offer a stop loss that should be below 450 on closing price basis. If it were to do so, if it were to fall below that, then exit. Otherwise, stay invested. Over the long term, I concur with Sharmila that it has real good fortune waiting for it.
We have a next caller through to us already. Dilip Chakravarti is on the line with us from Kolkata. Hi, Mr. Chakravarti. How can we help you? Mr. Chakravarti, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can listen to you.
Go ahead, sir. What's your question? Okay, I think we've got you on a very scratchy line. I do have your details with me, so let me just read it out. Mr. Chakravarti holds 40 shares in SBI, which he has bought at 280 about a year back. He's a medium-term investor and now wants to know what he should do with his current investment. Sharmila, let me come to you first on this because there's been quite a bit of fundamental news flow around PSU banks as such. Recently, of course, the new RBI rules as well. What's your sense on SBI? I mean, pretty much remain invested for now? Yeah, for two reasons. I think, one, to take off from what you said, this was absolutely recent as of this last weekend where RBI has allowed them to extend their bond payments over the next couple of quarters. So that, I think, is good news across PSU banks. And I think even apart from that, if you were to just look at the PSU banking space, I think only 2 or 3 names have emerged which have sort of looked good as far as that whole NPA picture is looking for most of the banks, and they look relatively strong. So I think SBI would be one, maybe Bank of Baroda would be the other. So there are 3 or 4 banks which you could name in the PSU banking space where results have been good, where actually asset quality has improved, or asset quality looks not as bad as some of the others. And I think State Bank certainly is in that list for me. So I think even from that perspective, the stock becomes a hold. So for me, the stock is a hold at this price.
All right, hold SBI at this price. But Rajat, earlier I remember Kannan was calling, he had investments in ICICI. You made alternate suggestions. Is there a similar case for SBI as well, or hold SBI?
Well, I would hold the same view here as well, because even though some things are improving at the PSU banking front, and SBI could be one of the leading banks, pretty strong compared to a lot of others, but still I would prefer an octogenarian man like Mr. Chakravarti. His age is mentioned as 80 years. I would like him to hold the best bank arguably the best bank in the country, HDFC Bank. Maybe the number of shares would be less, but he would actually, he would have good night's sleep.
All right. Well, that's very helpful. Rajat, Sharmila, thanks very much for stopping by today and for answering all the many queries that are being sent in by our viewers. We need to wrap up on your stocks. Closing bell will take all the market action forward. Stay tuned.